Cybersecurity attacks happen all the time, even to big, powerful companies. With that is growing security in the space. Joining me is an expert on this topic, Rob Embers, CCO of Dionach. Hi Rob, nice to have you in the New York Stock Exchange.
Thank you, Voz. It's great to be with you today.
Now, when I say expert, I mean 20 years of experience. So tell me a little bit about your background.
Okay, so I've been in tech for 20 years. The last 10 years I've been really in cybersecurity, working with organizations, really helping them try to understand the risks around the assets that they have and the attacks that they're likely to face, and really try to help them mitigate against those attacks.
Rob, I cover it all the time here. Another cybersecurity attack, recently British Airways, Marriott. Why should individuals be concerned about this?
Well, I think one of the biggest problems that people have, you can't do anything online now without exposing lots of personal information, right? The more information people want, the more you give them. So I think you have to be satisfied with the organizations you're giving the information to. Ultimately, you have no control over that information. You're reliant on those organizations to safeguard it. I think there's a few things that you can do as individuals to help reduce the risk of an attack or the consequences of an attack. One being is password management. So, one piece of advice for everybody is never use the same password twice. There's plenty of tools out there that will help you define a new password for every service you use. The reason being, if one service is compromised and you're using that same password across multiple sites, multiple services, it's not going to be very difficult for an attacker to put two and two together and essentially compromise you. By not doing it, you increase the likelihood of being subjected to identity fraud.
I need to make a list because I can never remember the passwords.
Just don't write it down.
Okay, don't write it down, especially on the internet.
Right.
But why are these companies targeted? Like, why them? And how are they targeted?
Well, I think we're all aware of nation-state attacks. I think for most small, medium-sized businesses, that's not really a problem. Most companies have some form of intellectual property. They have client information, they have staff information, they have financial information. That information is essentially commoditized now on the dark web. The greater the concentration of information, the greater the value. So credit card data with address details and social security numbers would be far more valuable than just a name and a phone number. So I think we see attacks coming from lots of different ways. One is people scanning the internet looking for weak vulnerabilities or services that are left exposed to the internet that they can exploit. You may be familiar with the term phishing, where an attacker will craft and lure you into clicking on something, but basically to either compromise the system that you're working on or to use it as a foothold to try and compromise a wider system. Bear in mind, it takes one user in an organization to essentially open up that organization to attack. Another common method that people will use it is ransomware. So by clicking on certain links, you may well find that you are then encrypting files and parts of your organization, rendering them useless. You pay Bitcoin to decrypt them. So I think that's the real motivation. Cybersecurity is costing the global economy hundreds of millions of dollars a year.
I'm sure it is, because I can't imagine a business wanting a cybersecurity attack. That's probably the worst thing that can happen. For all the business owners out there, why should they be concerned?
I think one of the first things that business owners need to consider is the informational assets that they own, that they have, and be that client data, their own information, and really look to understand how vulnerable those assets would be to attack. So really have a risk register of assets, of non-tangible assets, right? People are very good at figuring out financial risk, but maybe cyber risk is something they haven't considered right now. I think the bigger hacks that we see, the likes of Marriott, British Airways, that's the tip of the iceberg. Organizations in the small, medium-sized scale tend not to invest the kind of money that they need to actually A, determine how vulnerable they are, and B, manage the consequences of an attack.
Is there opportunity for investment in the cybersecurity space?
Yeah, I think the products and services in cybersecurity are due to exceed $100 billion in 2019. So there's clearly investment opportunity. I think what I'm seeing and what we're seeing as an organization is a slight move towards threat intelligence, monitoring, logging. So try to predict events that are going to happen. So I think maybe organizations in that space, look to have quite a good future.
So Rob, tell me, what is Dionach doing to help the cybersecurity space?
Okay, for 20 years we've been helping organizations understand vulnerabilities and how easily they are exploited. We essentially assume the role of a hacker. and we will look to manipulate and try and get systems to do things that they shouldn't do. And we just really help people try to figure out, ultimately we want businesses to be more secure and operate in a more secure environment.
So you're like the CIA in the web.
Kind of.
That's so cool. Rob, I'm so glad to have secured an interview with you today. Great to have you here at the New York Stock Exchange. Thank you for telling me about your company.
Thank you very much, Voz.